As I was doing some internet research for making another video, I stumbled upon something of critical importance in terms of the dialogue on government's role in social programs. What I stumbled upon was a U.S. Supreme Court case, Goldberg versus Kelly, dating back to 1970. And what it dealt with was the social programs. In this case, aid for dependent children and other forms of welfare. And what the court ruled was that government entitlements inherit a certain level of property rights. What this means is that once you're receiving them, the government has to go through procedural due process to cut you off. Well, that would seem to be logical, but let's think about this in a practical sense. You're already dealing with a bureaucracy that's just basically pushing paper to determine whether or not you're eligible. Then when it comes time for recertification, do they really have the wherewithal to actually go through the procedural due process to cut you off? Or is that just too much trouble for them? It actually explains something I had observed. My oldest child was very ill a few years ago, and because of circumstances, ended up joining the Medicaid rolls. Well, while she was hospitalized for about 5-6 months, she was on Medicaid. Well, my wife and I have private insurance. It's just that we had run it out. Well, once she got out of the hospital, the issue was no longer a problem. When the recertification for Medicaid came around, I would just ignore it because, well, we have private insurance. Why do I even need to recertify? I'm not interested in Medicaid anymore. But because I wouldn't send back the paperwork, it held up the due process. It took a year and a half past her need for Medicaid to ever be dropped from the rolls. Here, I just thought it was a temporary basis, which in fact all these social programs are intended to be, on a temporary basis. But in 1970, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled it may have been intended for a temporary basis, but the government has to establish cause to cut you off. It's no longer temporary. It now can become permanent, because the procedural hoops have to be gone through to make it temporary are just too arduous for the bureaucracy to care. That safety net of the Great Society can now become a hammock. And actually, this has been going on now for 40 years. Right now, we're talking about health care and the government's role in it. Imagine now if you're getting your health care from the government. Even if your situation changes, the government is still there for you. What impetus do you have to actually go out and get private insurance when the government will take care of it yourself? For that matter, why do anything if the government's there to help you out? Good intentions getting steamrolled. You know that? Maybe the United States has become the moocher's paradise that was feared by Ayn Rand.